The Khajiit are cat-like people from the country of Elsewhere. That's Elsewhere spelled Elsweyr, not Elsewhere. The Khajiit, like many beast folk, are native to Tamriel, so it would make sense you would find them all over the continent, right? Especially since it's been 600 years since Tiber Septim united all of Tamriel. This is where our story's protagonist comes to play. Rhystab was making his way from Cyrodiil into Skyrim, when he got himself caught in an Imperial ambush with some Stormcloaks. Rhystab, having traveled his way from Elsewhere to Skyrim, had developed skills in one-handed combat and with a bow. Using various twigs and berries, Rhystab knew the ins and outs of potion making. However, what made people most fearful of Rhystab were the skills he naturally possessed as a Khajiit. Khajiits are masters of stealth, which is then emphasized further by their abilities to pick locks and pick pockets. With his escape out of Helgen, Rhystab first made a trip to the Guardian Stones to activate the Thief Stone. This will help boost his sneak, archery, alchemy, lockpicking, and pickpocketing skills. We then made our way to Whiterun and talked to Jarl Balgruuf. However, it was not yet time to take on Bleak Barrow. Instead, we headed west towards Rorikstead, dying to a thief multiple times before cheesing them with the elevation. This gave us our first level up, where we took the first rank of the stealth perk. Right outside Rorikstead was Golden Hills Plantation. By taking out a couple ghosts, both who we struggled against, we could find out the fate of their dead son, giving the family closure, and giving us a free farm. I started by filling out the smaller plot of land with wheat and blue mountain flowers, which we used to make health potions. This, along with making other potions, got us to level 3, where we took the first rank of Armsman. For melee combat, I was currently experimenting with dual-wielding daggers. Though with us being so squishy, I did not find the damage sufficient. We then finally started making our way up to Bleak Barrow, swapping out our longbow for a hunting bow. Our damage with it was alright. Using sneak attacks, the bandits were 2 KOs. The bandit outlaw was a little trickier though. I know I could have just had him die to the poison trap, but where's the fun in that? We then hit level 4, thanks to a pickpocket skill book, picking up the first rank in Overdraw. Against the Frostbite Spider, we cheesed it using the doorway, but then for Arvel I just let him go, deciding to have him distract the Draugrs in the next room, making it easier to take them out from stealth. For one of the Draugrs we picked up an Ancient Nord bow. We also picked up the second rank of Overdraw. The boss of the dungeon was Draugr Overlord. We could not take many hits from his axe, so to fight it, we continuously bounced around the Overlord's arena, slowly turning it into a pincushion until it went down. We then picked up the Dragonstone off the Overlord's corpse. However, before heading back to Whiterun, we first made a detour to White River Watch. Inside the cave, we could pick up Imstool, along the way, taking out all the bandits, hitting level 6, and taking the backstab perk. Back at the farm, we could now take the Imstool we collected and combine it with more Tabanella to make lingering damage health poisons. Unlike normal poisons, which do a flat number, this does damage over time, doing more damage in total, making it the better poison. I ended up splitting our bigger farm plot in half, one half for more Tabanella and Imstool, and the other half for Nightshade and Deathbell for normal poisons. With a handful of poisons in our inventory, we handed off the Dragonstone to Farengar and took on our first dragon. Being a ranged build, we kept our distance from Mimir, occasionally running into the watchtower if it looked like we were going to get barbecued. Back at Whiterun, we were told to go see the Greybeards by Jarl Balgruuf. We also received the Axe of Whiterun, which this time manifested as a steel war axe with a shock enchantment. Sweet, we could use that. However, before making our way to the 7,000 steps, we first made a trip to Riften. Being a Khajiit in Skyrim, it would be hard for Rhystab to make friends in high places. However, that did not stop him from making friends in low places. By doing some reverse pickpocketing for Brynjolf, we were invited to join the Thieves Guild. We just needed to make our way to the Ragged Flagon. This required fighting 2 of the hardest early game bandits in the game, the Archer Droff and the bulky Henwan Blackskeever. Thanks to playing on Anniversary Edition, Droft is more difficult than normal, as he sometimes spawns with fire arrows. We had to bob and weave to avoid the arrows, while pumping Droft with poison. We could then switch to the Axe of Whiterun, the shock enchantment helping us take out Henwan. Off of Droft's body we picked up an Orcish bow. With those 2 gone, we could make our way to the Ragged Flagon, as John the Fist was an easy snipe. We tried to backstab the lowlife, but our steel dagger did less than half. We then leveled up from another pickpocket skill book, taking the first rank of the alchemist perk. At the Ragged Flagon, Bernal gave us our initiation quest into the guild. He needed us to intimidate some store owners, who owed the guild money. We could then meet Mercer Frey, and receive our Thieves Guild armor. Now, when it comes to armor this run, I am allowing armor with passive enchantments that can be used outside of combat, aka every piece of the Thieves Guild armor, except the hood because we cannot level speech. Our first mission as a new member of the Thieves Guild was investigating Glowinglow Estate. Using stealth and our poisons, we slowly took out some of the mercenaries, before swimming our way over to Glowinglow Estate's beehives, which we were instructed to only burn 3 of them. And of course, the fire arrows didn't work. I set the hives ablaze using a torch, though I know that simply equipping the flame spell can burn the hives without actually using the spell. We then snuck our way to the estate house, using an underground passage. The guards on the ground floor were easily avoidable, though the ones in the basement we needed to take out. This caused us to hit level 8, but I decided to bank the perk for now. Inside the Glowinglow safe, we found a bill of sale. We turned in the bill of sale to Brynjolf, but were then told to meet with Maven Blackbriar. She wanted us to sabotage the Honeybrew Meadery outside Whiterun. However, first we cleared Ambershard Mine. This was so we could reach 40 sneak, and take the Deadly Aim perk. When it came to the Meadery, we were to make our way to the distillery by convincing the owner Sapbjorn to hire us to deal with the rat problem. The Venom Fang Skeevers hit like a truck. They were 2-hit KOs with a sneak attack. If spotted, they were also 2-hit KOs with a fire arrow. Explosion warning, by the way. Taking them out got us to level 9, where I took the Physician perk. With the rats cleared out, all that was left was the rogue mage named Hamlet, but we managed to take him out with 3 fire arrows. We can now poison both the rat's nest and Sapbjorn's meat supply. This resulted in Sapbjorn's arrest, and us finding out that Sapbjorn was making deals with whoever bought Glowinglow. Maven then rewarded us with a dagger that has Soul Trap. Sadly, we cannot take advantage of Soul Trap, as recharging weapons gains enchanting EXP. We then made our way to Mercer, who told us to get in touch with a former contact for the Thieves Guild, Golemai. We found him at the inn in Solitude. In exchange for some firebrand wine we stole from the Blue Palace, he told us that yes, he was the middleman for the Glowinglow estate sale, but he would not tell us who bought it. Following that conversation, Golemai then left Solitude, and made his way to the East Empire Company warehouse. I tried to stay in stealth throughout the warehouse, but some of the guards did spot us. We at least found ourselves a thief backpack, boosting our lockpicking skill. In the back of the warehouse, we found an entrance to a cave. This cave was covered in bandits. This included a few higher ranking bandit thugs, who did give us a run for our money. With the bandits cleared out, we could confront Golemai, who spilled the beans and revealed it was Carlia who bought Glowinglow. Carlia was apparently responsible for the murder of Gaius, the former leader of the Thieves Guild. We relayed this information to Mercer, who then told us to meet him at Snowville Sanctum. We made our way there from Windhelm, along the way, helping out Talsgar the Wanderer, taking out a scavenger, and getting our butts whooped by a couple of ice wraiths. We had to run to Snowville Sanctum and have Mercer get the attention of the ice wraiths in order to deal with them. Snowville Sanctum was one of Skyrim's many driver-filled dungeons. I decided I wanted to take it on with melee. This just resulted in us using a lot of our health potions, and suffering many deaths. We ended up switching back to our bow for the Draugr Overlord. Past the Overlord was a door requiring a dragon claw, but there was no claw to be seen. Mercer then miraculously opened the door. That's a little suspicious. He told us to go in first. This led us to being shot with a poisoned arrow. We then watched a conversation between Carlia and Mercer, before seeing Carlia vanish, and Mercer stabbing us in the chest. We were then saved by Carlia, who told us that Mercer was the one who killed Gaius, and she needed our help in proving it. However, first was a trip to the farm for more potions. We then made our way to Winterhold, to talk to Inthier from the Mages College. Gaius' journal was apparently written completely in the Thalmor language. To decode it, we needed to talk to Kelselmo and Markarth. However, I wanted to do this quest differently than normal. We needed access to Kelselmo's lab, which required sneaking through his Dwemer museum. Being a little skilled at pickpocketing, we were able to swipe the museum key off Kelselmo. Getting through the museum was the actual challenge, as it was filled with guards. For this reason, I activated the Shadow Stone, giving Restep the ability to go invisible and make his way around the guards. Once in Kal'Sam's lab, we could more leisurely sneak our way through, taking out the hired guards who thankfully could not arrest us or give us a bounty. Attached to the lab was Kal'Sam's tower, which contained a Thalmor tablet that could help us in translating Gaius' journal. Using some paper and charcoal, we made an etching of the tablet, but then that summoned a group of guards in the building. Thankfully, we were able to sneak our way around and avoid conflict. We can now return to Inthyr, but I first made a detour to Morthal. This was so we could switch out the Shadow Stone for the Lord Stone, finally giving ourselves some defense. With the etching of the tablet in hand, Inthyr told us that Gaius had discovered Mercer was stealing guild funds, and Gaius was about to call him out for it. This rewarded us with the Nightingale blade. However, I never really used it, as it has a surprisingly small number of charges. Its base damage was also the same as our Dwarven sword. With this new information, Carly and us made our way to the cistern, where we convinced Brynjolf and the others of Mercer's misdeeds. Mercer, however, was nowhere to be seen. To find out what he was up to, we had to sneak into his home, Riftwell Manor. There, we discovered plans to steal the eyes of the Thalmor, along with a new sword, Chorin. To combat Mercer, we needed to be on his level. This required for us to become Nightingales, enforcers for the Daedric Prince Nocturnal. Restap was not too keen on signing his soul away to a Daedric Prince, but if he was going to help Carlia and the guild, it needed to be done. Since we could not use armor, I decided to put the Nightingale armor on a mannequin we had back at the farm. The eyes of the Thalmor weren't irking fans. However, we first had to deal with some ice wraiths and a group of bandits. The chief was rocking a full set of silver armor, which I thought was pretty neat. Once inside, we had to almost immediately deal with some Dwarven robots. Using a potion of brief invisibility, we were able to slip past the Dwarven sphere. However, we still had to deal with some Dwarven spiders, before we could meet up with Brynjolf and Carlia. We were at least rewarded with a circle of archery. With the three of us together, we could relatively easily make our way through the rest of the dungeon. We had to fight against a lot of Thalmor. This rose us to level 13, where we took the Steady Hands perk. I decided to get this perk because Mercer was pretty quick compared to other bosses we fight. We had to use a lot of poisons against Mercer, since his Dwarven sword has an absorb health enchantment. That's not to say we didn't fight Mercer in melee. We did, since I now didn't need to save the charges on the Nightingale blade. Also, getting the paralysis proc from Chorin could help us rack in the damage. We took out Mercer with our bow. On his body, we could retrieve the eyes of the Thalmor, along with the skeleton key, an artifact of Nocturnal that Mercer had stolen from her shrine, the Twilight Sepulchre. We were now tasked with returning the skeleton key to the Twilight Sepulchre. While the thought of an unbreakable lockpick did entice Restep, he did not want any more bad luck on his comrades. Carlia did reward us with a new bow. Just like the sword, its base damage was the same as Dwarven, but its enchantment made it worth it. Sadly, also, like the Nightingale blade, we had to use the bow sparingly. The Twilight Sepulchre was located outside Falkreath. As our relationship with Nocturnal was still iffy, we had to take the Pilgrim's Path. This required fighting multiple Nightingale Sentinels, all of whom take very little damage and hit very hard. Our saving grace happened to be that these ghosts could be poisoned. With them all gone, we then had to traverse a dark room, where getting touched by the light could damage us. We then fell down a well, but using the skeleton key opened the well to reveal the main chamber of the Twilight Sepulchre. There we met Nocturnal. For the return of the skeleton key, we get a choice of 3 powers. We chose the Shadow Cloak of Nocturnal, giving us an invisibility power without needing the Shadow Stone. With the Thieves Guild back in Nocturnal's good graces, hopefully, it was time to finally meet with the Greybeards. The usual saber cat that were on the path to Iris said had turned into bears, so that was fun. Also, it was here I also realized that a wolf had given us Rockjoy. Keep that in mind for later. On the path up to 7,000 steps, the usual ice wolf turned into an ice wraith, but it got itself stuck. The Frostjaw was its usual self, but thanks to our large number of health potions, we were able to take it out. Inside Hrothgar, we had to scream at some old men, like we were a house cat wanting attention, before being sent off to raid the tomb of Ustengrav. With our high sneak skill, the enemies inside Ustengrav for the most part were no issue, especially since most were no stronger than Restless Draugrs. The frostbite spider at the end did turn into a giant one though, so that was an annoyance. However, using the flame traps we were able to defeat it, rewarding us with the Note of Jorgen Windcaller. Following Ustengrov, we made a trip to the farm, where we were attacked by a dragon. However, with Lydia's assistance, we beat it swiftly. We then hit level 15 while potion making. We took the Assassin's Blade perk. Whoever is here that watched my Daggers Only video, I hope you can forgive me now. We then made our way to Riverwood, where we met up with Delphine. She needed us to help her take out a dragon. That dragon, Zelaknir, was quickly turned into a pincushion, thanks to the assistance of Delphine the Unkillable and this large rock. Next up was infiltrating the Thalmor embassy. However, I wanted to prepare a little more for it. At the Riften docks, we can meet Varaya, who gives us various fishing jobs. The most notable were the jobs for the Falkreath Alchemist and the fishing contest in Morthal. The Falkreath job involved us giving a guard an invisibility potion disguised as a bottle of skooma, rewarding us with the Ring of Surroundings, boosting our sneak. The fishing contest ended up being a hoax. If we met the old man at the fishing hole, we were ambushed by some high-level mages. However, by killing the old man just outside town, we could fish in peace, rewarding ourselves with the Warlock's Ring, giving us the ability to use a ward by simply blocking with our sword. Time for the Thalmor embassy. With daggers now doing 15 times sneak damage, and the power to go invisible, I originally tried to sneak attack the first Thalmor we came across. However, it did not kill. I was drastically confused, until I remembered we still had Rock Joint. After a reset, we then got the kill using a poison. This made us spotted by the others, so we switched to our bow and took them out the normal way. We did one-shot the wizard outside Element Solar, so that was cool. We then got the assassination kill cam on the soldier by the stairs, and Gisser. This at first alerted Rolando, but he quickly lost sight of us. A sneak attack with our bow only did half, leading to Rolando being a 3 KO. We can now safely make our way downstairs, and read the dossier on Esbern. This caused Malborn and 2 Thalmor soldiers to appear, but we quickly one-shot the first one, leading to an easy 2v1 with the other. Back at Riverwood, we told Delphine of the Thalmor's search for Esbern, and of his possible whereabouts at Riften. As we were already a member of the guild, this led to some unique dialogue from Delphine, as she told us to go to the Flagon rather than to talk to Brynjolf. Entering from the cistern, I discovered Etienne from the Thalmor embassy was a fellow guild member. That's pretty cool. The Thalmor were already searching the right way for Esbern, but they were no stronger than the ones back at the embassy. We could then make our way to Esbern and convince him to come back with us to Riverwood. Reunited with Delphine, Esbern informed us of Alduin's Wall, and its resting place in Skyhaven Temple. However, I first got some one-handed training from Amarin. This training got us to level 16, where I took the 3rd rank of Armsman. I then made a Cure Disease potion, using Vampire Dust and Mudcrab Chitin. I was planning on using a Shrine, but this felt more fanatic. Outside Karspire, we were attacked by a Frost Dragon. The Forsworn primarily used fire spells, so that helped a lot. Also, when the dragon inevitably crashed into its Barrow mound, Delphine and Esbern thankfully followed us. However, I guess we were taking too long, as the dragon flew away despite its low health. It then landed on the other side of the river, blocking entry in the Karspire. The dragon went down to Esbern's firebolts. While it was not necessary, we then helped Delphine and Esbern finish off the rest of the Forsworn, before entering the cave and making our way to Skyhaven Temple. Inside, we picked up Dragonsbane, just in case we needed it, and then listened to Esbern tell us we needed a shout to defeat Alduin. Inside the bedchamber for the temple, we picked up a hunter backpack, giving us another boost to our bow damage. This new info meant it was time to return to Hrothgar, where we got screamed at like we just pushed Arngir's favorite mug off the table. We then got told to meet with Parthenax, who told us the shout could only be learned via an Elder Scroll. I had already picked up the lexicon before making the trip up the mountain, but our destination was not Alftan. There are multiple entrances into Blackreach, and Erkingthans happens to be right next door to one of them, Ralbathar. This did involve us taking on a group of bandits, including multiple bandit thugs. The first section of robots was also harder than at Alftan, but we managed to find ourselves a hole to hide in, until the Dwarven Spheres lost interest in us. We could then activate our Shadow Cloak and sneak our way past them. We could not sneak past all the spheres. Some required us to take them out, but as long as the fight was 1v1, we were okay. We then reached the Falmer section. While they were 2 KOs with our bow, their sheer numbers were too much, forcing us to take them out with the blade trap. We then came across a Falmer Skulker, but we were able to get past it using Mercer's sword. Apparently this Thalmor was supposed to be wearing armor, but the game wasn't showing it. Probably a visual bug. Thanks, Todd. Past the Thalmor, we came across a section where normally a couple of spheres would come out of the walls. But I think thanks to our sneak skill, we were able to get past the area without any enemies spawning. We then reached the final room, which contained a Dwarven Centurion. However, because of our level, it had upgraded to a Centurion Guardian. There was no way we could beat it on equal ground. So I used the water in the arena to get behind the Centurion and pelt it with arrows. If it managed to make its way over to us, I just swam to the other side and repeated. We did this until it finally went down. We could now enter Blackreach and beeline our way to the Tower of Mizark and grab the Elder Scroll. Before making our way back to the Throne of the World, I made a trip to Solitude. By waiting by these arrow targets, we can get an infinite resupply of steel arrows. With 200 steel arrows, I decided it was time to take on Alduin. Using the Nightingale bow and Parthenak's ward wall as cover, we shot at Alduin with our poisoned arrows. Our lingering poisons now did a total of 70 HP in damage, but Alduin is a boss that is always higher level than the player, so the damage was not that noticeable. Getting his shots did come with risk, as Alduin's fire breath still decimated our health bar, despite putting points into it every level. Thankfully, we were drowning in health potions. We did eventually switch positions, as these rocks gave us better cover, and a clearer shot. We stayed in this spot until Alduin finally went down. It was at this time, I realized I forgot about a bow that would have probably trivialized this challenge. The Bow of Shadows. By talking to Preventus, we can learn of an assassination attempt on the Jarl. Looking at the Alchemist's ledger, we can discover the stable boy bought some poison. The stable boy was dead. On his body was a note mentioning Silent Moon's camp. At the camp, we found a note saying the killer will be up on the Blackreach balcony. We took out the assassin with a sneak attack and some lingering poison. Our reward was a bow that did 20 more base damage than our Nightingale bow. Next up was the Peace Council, just so we could learn the words to call Odiving, summon Odiving, trap Odiving, and then convince Odiving to fly us to Skuldolphin. With our overpowered bow, I decided to take out all the Draugr and the dragons outside Skuldolphin Temple. We were using the ebony arrows that the assassin was also carrying. However, after the second dragon, we did switch to our steel arrows, which made the Draugr Wights a little tough to deal with. Once inside the temple, we had a lot easier time, as there was only base level and restless Draugrs. We also hit level 19, and for our final perk, we took the 4th level of Overdraw. At the end of the dungeon was a Draugr Overlord, but we had found a couple of fire arrows, allowing us to one-shot the Overlord with a sneak attack. Past the Overlord, we could once again make our way outside, where we once again took out all the Draugr, before deciding to challenge the Dragon Priest, Nakreen. We switched to our ebony arrows, but I think Nakreen got himself stuck. He freed himself eventually, but it was too late. Well, that was anticlimactic. We can now enter Sovngarde, where we next needed to fight soon. However, there is nothing that says we must fight soon, honorably. Get wrecked, you human-shaped pile of bricks. With soon defeated, we can enter the Hall of Valor, and recruit the ancient heroes for a final battle against Alduin. With the 3 heroes all playing melee, we were in no danger, as we shot at Alduin from a distance, and kept him grounded with Dragon Rend. We beat Skyrim only leveling up Khajiit's major skills, aka Stealth Archer with Intercepts. Usually I prefer either a sword and board or a mage build, so by forcing myself to level Sneak, it made for an interesting challenge, and I can now see why the Stealth Archer is the best build in Skyrim, if you can wear armor. If you made it this far, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya.